Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. I'm back every Friday to do the live, and today the topic is fears. What fears can teach you? So important to know that fears, though they're very uncomfortable, sometimes survival, sometimes they need to be here, but also they can teach us something. And we're going to talk today about fear of criticism, fear of change, fear of rejection, fear of punishment, fear of loneliness, fear of judgment. Fear of failure. So lots and lots of fears today. And each fear is just a symptom. Underneath, there is something else. And I'm also going to give you what part of your body is affected by each fear. So, for example, if you have a fear of criticism, that can affect your body in a different way than the fear of rejection. And I'll explain to you why it happens like that. So, let's begin. Fear of failure. Fear of failure is the basic fear. However, it's the devaluation, self-devaluation. So I'm not enough, right? If I fail, then I'm a failure. If I'm a failure, then no one needs me. So I'm not worthy. What will suffer in your body if you have this deep fear of failure, right? So you're always afraid of like risking, making some changes, taking actions. Usually muscles and bones. Why? Because it's a second system that was developed, and it's a system that is responsible for how I feel about myself, how I'm good enough, right? I'm strong enough, right? Muscles and bones. So fear of failure, if it's a deep fear of failure, it will affect muscles. And I'm not saying that it's 100%. No, don't take these words as like the only truth. No, but you can definitely notice if you have a tension in your neck, tension in your shoulders, tension in your back, in your knees, then it may mean that you don't feel like you're doing enough, which means you devaluate yourself. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Alden. Hello. It's really, really nice to meet you. So, fear of failure. What is it telling you? What is this fear of failure? Usually, it is either you are afraid to take the responsibility for your action. Very often, I'm afraid to fail because if I fail, then I'll be responsible for what I did. So we don't want to take responsibility. Taking responsibility for our own life, health, and actions is one of the hardest things for a human being. Really. If you take 100 people, 75% of them are afraid to take the responsibility. So they will be afraid of failing, because failing means I will have to take the responsibility for my actions. So next, what also fear of failure, what can it teach you? It actually can teach you that you need to reframe fail, because now if you're afraid of failure, that failure is associated with danger or death, and it might feel weird, but it's not, right? It is absolutely not. If you change that failure is an experience, then you're going to advance and grow. So there's only two, as I said, there's only two options how you can grow. You can either grow or you can either stagnate in the old patterns. It's up to you. So fear of failure, if you have it, it can teach you that actually you cannot succeed without failure. Your mind will always keep you safe, right? Your mind wants to keep you safe. What else? Write down in your comments, who has fear of failure? Who is procrastinating because they're afraid to fail? For example, I want to open my own business, but I'm really, really afraid that I will fail. And usually if the clients come to me with that fear, I will ask them, and what then? What will happen? It's not about the failure. It's about how you're going to feel about the failure. We are not afraid of failing itself. We are afraid of our emotions that we are going to have once we fail. So this is what fear of failure can teach you. First, it manifests in your bones and muscles. Bones, the strength, the energy, right? Bones, muscles. So if you are afraid of failure, right, it means like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm good enough. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I'm successful enough. So I might not even try. Yes, absolutely. By the way, good my mom feels, yes. So when I had my daughter, I felt like I wasn't a good mom, right? She was having dermatitis. She would have lots of health issues, and of course, I would say this is something wrong with me. Something I'm doing. I'm doing something wrong. I'm not a good mother. So I couldn't breastfeed for a long time, right? And I had always struggles with this. So I was like, I'm not a good mom. And do you know what hurts? My back. My back, right? My back, I wasn't feeling in my body, right? Absolutely. And always regrets are the symptoms of the fear of failure. Even when we think about the failure, we already have regrets about our previous failures, though it's not a failure, right? It's an experience, but we consider it a failure. So it kind of haunts us. All the regrets. Why? Because we cannot forgive ourselves, right? And our mind will punish ourselves. If your mom, right? If your mom has this feeling, then she punishes herself with something. And you can observe her life, and you can watch what is she punishing herself for. What tool is she using? She's punishing herself. So I don't know what's behavior, but there is something. And if you watch, maybe she's not allowing herself to be happy. Maybe she is always apologizing. Maybe she has some behaviors, obsessive behaviors that she's punishing herself for, maybe with food, maybe with weight. Yeah, I know. For me, I punished myself with self-criticism, eating, binge eating. So there's a lot of options how we can punish ourselves. But regrets, self-blame will always have a behavior of self-punishment. I don't know what it is. It's different for everyone. It's completely different for everyone. Let's go further. Fear of rejection. One of the basic, deepest fears. We all are born to avoid rejection. We need to be with someone. First, when we are born, we need to be to mom's skin, fear of rejection. We need to be closer to someone, whether it's a caregiver, sometimes mom is not available, right? But someone, the primary caregiver. So if we have it, then we feel okay, I'm okay. But at some point when we grow up, and it happens to everyone, at some point, not to everyone, but to many people, then we get rejected. We start to realize that, oh, I'm loved conditionally and not unconditionally. So when I don't do good in school, then I'm rejected. My mom just like kind of cold. My dad is like criticizing me when I don't do good, when I didn't compete well in the competition, or whoever had criticism in childhood can really relate. Then we feel rejected. Bullying in school, huge, especially grade 9 and 10, 8. Write down who had their years, grade 7, 8, and 9 as one of the worst years. I don't know why, but the last 15 clients that I had, they told me that grade 8 and 9 was the worst years in their life because of the bullying, comparison, criticism, and all of those hormonal changes that are happening in our life. And on top of that, we feel, I know, right? Oh my gosh, yes, I know, for me as well, grade 8. So most of my beliefs, right? Most of my beliefs were formed in that grade 8. So Whoever is rejected, and rejected, we can get rejected in many situations. Starting from, dad left us when we were kids, mom left us, rejection. It's a survival conflict. So how will it show up in your body? It's going to be digestive system. Digestive system is one of the primary system for survival, in and out, in and out, right? So it's the system that will suffer. So we're anxious about my partner might leave me, then we will feel it in our body. Will I survive? Will I have enough money to eat? Right? Also is a survival conflict. So will be in our digestive system, whatever it is, starting from teeth. Teeth is part of our digestive system, and ending up in constipation or diarrhea, right? So whatever it is, fear of rejection. What is that fear of rejection? So school bullying in school, divorce, separation, mom left, dad left, everything else that happened after you turned 16 is just a mirror of what was happening in childhood. Whenever people ask me like, well, my partners always cheat on me. What's with your dad? I will always ask, what's with your dad? I cannot have a baby. I cannot conceive a baby. I'm afraid that my partner will leave me or we separate. What's with your dad? Right? So relationship and everything else then after 16, 18 is just kind of confirmation of all of those beliefs that we formed. So yes, there are some, it's not in every case, 95%, 5% I'm taking towards car crashes, airplane crashes, some terrorist attacks, war, right? So PTSD, like the traumatic syndrome shocking event that happened unexpected. But before you were great, you felt okay. You didn't have any issues. So but that's only 5% and even less. I'm just taking 5% just to be on the safe side. Fear of rejection. What else about fear of rejection? We still believe we're like 35, we're 45, we are growing into a mature adult, and we're still afraid that our parents or our partners are going to leave us. And if they do, I'm not going to survive. How does that show up? You usually might be saying, I don't know how I'm going to live without her. I won't survive without him. Like, this is it. This is the end of the world. When you say that, your body will react exactly the same way. Your body will see that situation as a life-threatening event. Right? So divorce, separation, especially unexpected, can trigger that fear of rejection so much that after that, we start to develop, it even intensifies. It's not that strong, but at some point it triggers and it gets really strong. And we then start to have attachment issues, right? We start to over-apologize. We start to, to stay in the abusive, toxic relationship because we are so afraid of being rejected. And fear of loneliness. I'm going to talk about fear of loneliness. So fear of rejection, what it can teach you. What fear of rejection can teach you. First, that you're not a child anymore. And if you're rejected, you're still going to breathe. You're still going to breathe, walk, eat, and everything else. While when you're a child, if you're rejected, when you're like 6 months old, if you're rejected and left alone, you're going to die. And your mind remembers that. Don't remember that we're driven a lot by our monkey mind, right? So if you give yourself an understanding like, I'm not a child anymore. I don't really need to be there at all. Like, I don't need to be afraid of rejection at all. Rejection when we grow up, it's not about us. It's at some point, it's just about them as well, whoever we feel is rejecting us, right? So, and it's like the experience. Then it's not my person. That it's just not my person at all. If someone rejects you, fear of rejection can show up in fear of public speaking, fear of risking, fear of taking responsibility, fear of taking action, fear of change, fear of getting into new relationship, fear of, all of those fears can have this fear of rejection underneath, but it can teach us so much. It can actually make us grow. We can grow, we can evolve, right? So don't be afraid. So for example, if you are you're an adult now, and something happened and you feel like, okay, I got rejected. Something, I don't know, criticism. Okay, if I'm rejected, I'm going to be pushing it and looking for what is mine. Absolutely, that's the best strategy. Marina, this is the best strategy that you can use. This is when you already grew, you evolved, right? So when you are rejected, you push back and you're like, okay, this is an experience. I'm just going to go further, to motivate myself, to be inspired by future goals, or just gonna pursue my goal even more. This is growth, right? This is not a stagnation when people are staying in the sphere, but this is growth. So Irina, you're doing great, right? So this is amazing. This is amazing. Another fear of loneliness. Fear of loneliness, right, is how can you test if you have fear of loneliness? You always seek to be around someone. You're afraid to be alone, and that happened to me. So I always thought that I need a lot of people, a lot of friends to be around me. Every weekend, I needed to be engaged with some group of friends, parties, or whether just like barbecue parties, evenings, gatherings, community work. Then if my husband would come, I would never leave him alone. I would just chat and chat and chat. I was very afraid to be alone. So fear of loneliness. I was afraid that if I'm by myself, which means I'm lonely. If I'm lonely, I'm not needed. And we want to be needed, right? We want to need is, who will remember that the best reward we get is someone tells us, thank you. Oh, I don't know what I would do without you, like we feel, oh, I'm needed. I am needed, I'm accepted. The best feeling, right? Whoever has any business, any customer service jobs, whoever does that, please write down, comment who has the customer service job and who loves it, hairdressers, therapists. So please, you can even understand that, oh, I love it. I love that feeling. I love that feeling when someone tells me, thank you. Right? So thank you, thank you, thank you. Which means that you're needed, which means that you're not lonely. However, fear of loneliness, if you have it, actually can teach you a lot. If you have this fear, it means that you need to start training yourself to be alone. To be alone, starting from self-care weekends where you're by yourself, maybe too long, but going inwards and being okay to lose people, being okay, even your loved ones, even the closest people to you. When you attach to them, you kind of you can even start to manipulate them not to leave you. That's also possible, right? How many cases there are that parents manipulate their kids because they're afraid of loneliness. Kids are moving out at 18, and parents are starting to still control them, still be part of their life, and that can affect our life as kids, as their kids, right? So learning to be alone, that loneliness is actually not a bad thing. Being alone by yourself doesn't mean you're lonely, right? It just means that you can be by yourself and you are okay. What it will give you confidence. It will give you confidence. And this is something that everyone wants. Being confident. By the way, if you have a fear of loneliness, people smell it. I know it's kind of sounds weird, but people smell fear of loneliness. They can exactly, I don't know, on this kind of subconscious vibrations, energy level, they can smell that you're afraid of loneliness, and that's kind of draws manipulators, abusers, manipulators, narcissists. Ooh, they love fear of loneliness because they can then control people. So if you have fear of loneliness, the best part is to actually get there. Get there. I'm okay. I'm okay to be by myself for as long as needed. Very hard. Sometimes we will need to let go of our loved ones. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but I had this type of therapy where you actually imagine that you have lost everyone in your life, including your kids, including your partners, your parents, right? And you're kind of by yourself, right? And a lot of people cannot survive that. It's super painful. I'm still working on that. I really cannot imagine for now that I'm losing my kids. So that was the hardest therapy session I have ever had, right? It was within the course of fear of dying. And we had to die and we had to be reborn. So very interesting therapy. I was even thinking about making a course about fear of dying. It's really interesting. People need to learn more about that so they're not afraid. Health anxiety, social anxiety, fear, phobias are all having fear of dying underneath. So good to uncover that fear as well. What else? Fear of lonely can teach you to actually that this is exactly what you need, that you cannot stay by yourself, you cannot be by yourself, which means there is a lack of confidence. There is a lack of confidence, self-love, self-belief, self-trust, and you name it. So please, 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 your subconscious mind doesn't know time. When you felt lonely in childhood, that belief still replays, and it kind of protects you, right? Kind of protects you. Oh, I'm always going to be with someone, but at the same time harms you even more because it gets you into these relationships that are not healthy, workplaces that are not healthy, right? And all the jobs that you don't like, so that it harms us much more than it protects us. So fears usually, right, are there to protect us, but in most cases, when we grow up, they harm us and our body. Where fear of loneliness, where is it in your body? Who can tell me? I don't know. People, come on. Where is fear of loneliness in your body? It will be heart and lungs, right? Breathing is life. Being lonely means not needed. There is not enough of life. So lungs, if we're talking about psychosomatics, lungs and heart. This is where we're gonna feel fear of loneliness. So if you have it, right? Sometimes, by the way, kids who have asthma, they believe that they will be left alone, right? My brother, he was left with nanny when he was 1 year old and started to develop extreme asthma, extreme bronchitis, and pneumonia almost every single month. So he was like on antibiotics all the time. So why? Because he was left. It's like a lack of life. If I'm not next to the people that I depend on, that I might not survive. So lungs and heart, right? Love. So fear of criticism. Ooh, fear of criticism. And where does it show up? Fear of criticism shows up on our skin, because criticism never happens by itself. It always involves someone else. When you were born, you didn't criticize yourself, really. But at some point, right, we grow up into the family, sometimes criticism, sometimes judgment, sometimes punishment, sometimes school, competition, comparison. We start to invite inner critic. Invite inner critic into your life. And but it also always involves two people, always, or more than two. So it's a social conflict. All the social conflicts is going to be the last system that developed. If you take the little embryo that is conceived from two loving parents, embryo, first thing is digestive system, then goes bones and muscles, And the last one is skin, right? Skin. So skin is the social conflicts. Criticism will show up on our skin if we're talking about body. So, for example, before a public speaking event, some people start to break out. They start to break out. We sometimes right before some event where we go somewhere, we start to, have something on our skin because we're self-conscious. So, by the way, eczema, right? It's the dryness of the skin. It has biological reasons as well, but has psychological as well. Fear of criticism, a huge fear for so many people, just because we started to believe that criticizing means I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. So fear of criticism will show up in perfectionism, high achieving, right? And usually if you have fear of criticism, no matter how well you prepared, no matter how perfect you look like, you're still gonna feel, oh, something could be done better. Oh, my nails don't look that good. I kind of, okay. So fear of criticism, this is the underlying issue, right? I cannot be criticized. I have to be perfect. So this is how it's going to show up from the emotional side. Fear of criticism will show up in procrastination. I won't even do, because what if I'm criticized? And by the way, procrastination is not always a bad thing. Not always a bad thing. Sometimes we procrastinate before actions that we don't want to do. When something that, for example, you don't like your job, and you procrastinate before projects, or you're not that proactive, even manager can talk to you and say, come on, Kate, you can perform better. Sometimes because you just don't like it. And it's a self-work, it's a self-reflection. Not always. A lot of times procrastination is like a fear of responsibility, right? Fear of rejection, fear of failure. But in some cases, I've had clients who had, I just don't like my job. This is why I procrastinate. And 2 months later, they find another job and they're like a little battery, like a energizer, and they feel like this is what I was meant to do. So look at procrastination from both sides. If you procrastinate, look at what are you procrastinated at? What is it? It's not always a bad thing. It's not always. Sometimes it's a language that tells you, no. You don't have to do that. You were meant for this. You were meant for something else. And sometimes we're like, I'm dreaming about like opening my own restaurant, but I'm doing this project management that I don't like, for example. Yes, you will procrastinate there. And you will procrastinate opening a business as well, because you're going to be doubting yourself, right? So procrastination sometimes tells us a lot about ourselves. So if you are always trying to be better, always trying to be perfect, for whom? What for? Where did you decide to be better and be perfect? How does that affect your life? Come on, girls who are overachievers, I'm sure there is something with thyroid. There is something with hormones, right? When you are the very strong women entrepreneurs, they might have problems with the thyroid. Their hormones will be chaotic, because our hormones are responsible. They're listening. Our mind, our cells are listening to our mind as well. Next, fear of change. Fear of change will also be hormones, right? I'm afraid to change. I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to stagnate. I'm going to stay here. I don't want to grow. Fear of change is not growing. Fear of change is fear of life. So that you know, if you are afraid of change, you are afraid of living. You're staying in a comfort zone. And by the way, for many people, staying in the comfort zone, it's more harmful, right, than actually being out of it. If they think about, oh, I don't want to come out of my comfort zone because it's too dangerous for my mind. But actually it's needed, because life is changing. Life is change. So if you're afraid of change, you're afraid of life. So don't work on the fear of change. Work on the fear of life, right? Also, staying in depressed moods, also fear of change. Sometimes we get familiar with depression and we're like, I'm just gonna stay here crying, waiting for someone to save me. That's possible as well, not your fault. You just made depressed, sad, negative thoughts very familiar to yourself, and you live by those beliefs. Fear of change. Fear of change, it needs, what can it teach you? Is starting to sample something. If you're afraid of change, don't be hard on yourself, really, and just go and try something that you like. I don't know, maybe it's a new hobby. It's a little change. It's something that you like, but you will get used. It's like exposure therapy, right? You're getting used a little bit to change, but to pleasant change. So if it's a hobby, right? If you're trying something new, but something pleasant, then it can be a pleasant change. So you make the association. Change is a reward. Reward yourself. Sample something. Reward yourself. Yeah, changed a little bit of your lifestyle. Reward yourself, so that it's not now fear, because fear is danger. Your mind decided that it's danger, that change is danger. So switch it to it's not a danger, it's a reward, it's an excitement. How you can do it is by small little changes. For example, hobby. Do the hobby. It's going to help you a lot. Fear of punishment and fear of judgment. Fear of punishment and fear of judgment means that you feel like it's all my fault. It is all my fault. If I did something wrong, it's my fault. What happens then? You start to reject yourself. When we reject ourselves, that means, I'm gonna have some water. It means that, what is your immune system going to do? It's going to attack you, because it's going to see you as an alien. Did I pronounce as well? Right? Tell me. Alien, right? Yeah, so your body will see you, your immune system will see you, your cells, your body, your systems, your organs, as an alien. When we reject ourselves, when we believe it's all our fault, that's all on me. Fear of punishment, fear of judgment. It must be my fault. It's all about me. So then autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease, not doing what you love, right? Because you might be punished if you do what you love. So many people feel like they don't deserve happiness, right? I don't deserve happiness. And if I don't deserve happiness, I'm not worthy. And if I'm not worthy, then I'm no one. Like, I'm not really important, and I don't really matter in this life. And what your systems are going to do, they're going to reject you reject you. So autoimmune disease, autoimmune, right? Attack of your immune system on your own cells. Right? And of course, on top of that, we have our food, we have our environment, we have our lifestyles. I'm not saying that it's just that, but there is always two factors, always physiological and psychological, all the time. So what happens if you only work on physiological reasons? You can absolutely get better. You can even heal some illnesses or conditions. However, there is a symptom imperative. If the psychological reason is not resolved, which might be resolved, but if it's not, then it will show up somewhere else. Something, I don't know, psychotic disorder, or anxiety, or some phobia, or another body symptom. If you work only on psychological level, it's also not enough. This is the only way, this is the only case what I take when I say not enough. So if you work on only on psychological level, right, it also not enough, because your body needs support as well in order to have resources, to have inner resources for even for your mind healing. You need to work with your body as well. You can you can start with either of those, either with physiological work or inner work on your mind, doesn't matter. So fear of judgment and fear of punishment, what it can teach you, it can teach you to grow up, really, to grow up. It exactly means that you're still stuck in your childhood. Fear of judgment and fear of punishment is always a very ignorant mind, very kind of immature, understanding, awareness. There is no awareness that you are not a child anymore. Usually people with fear of punishment and fear of judgment, they are still stuck in those beliefs from childhood, and they like, if I'm punished, that's it. And it usually comes from punished initiative, parents who are punishing you, criticizing you, and not rewarding you, by the way, right? Like diminishing your accomplishment as well. So fear of punishment is a huge indicator that you need to work with your subconscious mind, and you need to give it an understanding that I'm not five. Like, come on. Even if my dad punished me and didn't give me something for like a week or two, or even physically abused me, then it doesn't mean that no one can do that for me right now. But your subconscious mind doesn't know about that yet. It just doesn't know about it yet. So please, 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 if you have fear of judgment, fear of punishment, right? It's like you are blaming yourself, that if I do something wrong, can be punished, which means that I am accepting that it's my fault. And we don't want that. Of course, your mind will keep you away from those situations. However, it's a big indicator that you need to work on growing up in your mind, which means learning, meditating, guided meditations, self-work, affirmations. There are a lot of rapid methods, of course, right? But fear can teach you. Fear is like the best language. Whenever I have fear, right, I always know what it's telling me. I used to not know, used to just stuck in that fear forever. But now, as I progress, right, and I grow as well inside, in my mind and in my body, of course, I start to listen to the fear. Sometimes, like right now, I'm launching a course, right, and I have this little fear of rejection. I have it somewhere here, but I'm so aware of it that at this point I'm like laughing at it, but it's causing my body. I have body symptoms from it. Yeah, I have body symptoms, but however, I come out of that state very fast because I'm very aware that I have it. So I hope that you will be able to listen to your fear, learn, because it can teach you so much. It teaches you exactly what you need to work on. There is nothing like you can. I usually give this little exercise to my clients, so you can put two hands, and in one hand you imagine yourself in 5 years. Imagine your life in 5 years with this fear of criticism still. You're still trying to be perfect. You're still like not acting on things that you want. You're still like afraid, overthink, ruminate about what other people think about you. So you can stay there and look at how your life is going to evolve. Or you can put yourself in 5 years, but when you overcame that fear, when you're not afraid of criticism anymore, when you actually are indifferent to what other people say, how your life looks like. Just close your eyes and imagine how your life looks like in 5 years with fear and without fear. And you're going to be like, oh my goodness. And if you can imagine it, you can manifest it. Really. If everything is created twice, everything in your life is created twice. First in your mind, and then in your reality. So please, please, please listen to your fear. And then in 5 years, you're going to be a completely different person. And if you love yourself right now, great. There is always room for growing, for evolvement, for healing. And if you do have that lack of confidence, fears are overwhelming you, listen to them. They can tell you a lot. And if you need help, my contacts are in all social media. You can contact me, book your chat, and we can conquer your fear in 1 2 hour session with the listening to the recording, your personalized meditation so you can reprogram your mind. I love you all. Be healthy, emotionally and physically. Bye.